Look, I don't consider myself a horror movie gatekeeper per se, but damn, when Ghostface gets to monologuing about horror films in this movie, I'm like, hey, that's good. There's just some things I feel like I've said before. It's like,
Hello, Sydney. It's an honor.
what's your favorite scary movie? Personally, mine, hard to say, but I mean, John Carpenter's The Thing is up there. I think it's one of my favorites. Honestly, maybe Evil Dead. Today we have, after many years, Scream. What? No, not Scream. Not Scream. Scream. You know, because why make sense now? It's just such a weird choice because you have Scream 1, 2, and 3, and then you have Scream 4, and then now they're like, not Scream 5, they're just Scream. Why? So the new Scream is out. Who knew? Who knew? I was a little bit surprised when I heard the announcement trailer last year, but I was like, I mean, sure, because Scream is the essence of like horror slasher that is like also a meta commentary about horror slashers that evolves with the state of horror films and slashers. So like it's always an interestingly layered movie that I've always just been here for because it's fun, pretty much self-aware horror slasher film, and I'm all up for some commentary and go with my kills, you know. But it came out this year, the glorious year of 2022, directed by two people. We got another co-directing thing going on here. Matt Bettinelli-Olpin. It's one of those hyphen names. He, along with his cohort Tyler Gillette, I don't know. They co-directed this. And funny enough, similar to the Wachowskis, that's not just because they both have their own separate backgrounds, but they also both co-directed another movie that I actually like a lot. I was surprised I liked this movie, but Ready or Not. And I remember the trailer for this one, I was like, looks alright. It was actually really good. And they're back here to do the new Scream, funny enough. When I was doing the research, I didn't see if they had dipped their toes in the previous installments, but they did this one, and there's a little bit of it shows. In terms of the stars, I mean, there's a lot of star power in this, a mixture of ensemble cast and legacy characters, similar to what Halloween Kills recently did, and a bunch of other like horror reboot movies that they actually pointed out as well in this movie. But I suppose the main two ones to point out are arguably the two leads, female, neat. We have Melissa Barrera, who previously has been not mentioned per se, but she was proxy to a review I did because she was in the Heights last year. And we have the other one, the little sister, Jenna Ortega, who I did not realize until after I watched this movie and did my research, is in You. I didn't realize she was in You. But she shows up in season 2, and I was like, oh, now that you say that, I recognize her. Of course, I can go down the list of all the legacy characters featured. Pretty much all these people, almost, well, except for You and except for You, but like the main core trio of legacy characters. Sidney Prescott, Gail Weathers, and Dewey Decimal System. Plus, of course, and I'm so glad I got to meet this man, but Roger Jackson, I'm so glad, returned once more as the voice of Ghostface, which nails it. It's great. My notes going into this before I start the pros and cons. Melissa Barrera, I remember her being good in the Heights, and she emotes and has a lot of emotion in this film, but her delivery of most of her lines is really weird. Like, unless she's yelling, like, her delivery for lines is just odd. It's enough to take me out of the movie. I thought it was kind of weird, and her choices for delivery are just odd. Once again, Jenna Ortega, little sister, I thought she was great. I thought she sold like hysterical and scared and sad and pain and suffering. Like all those what she goes through in this film, she was great. I think out of the two of the sisters, she's not meant to be the main one like we focus on, but she steals the show. But yeah, getting into Scream, it's weird to talk about. I find it very, very funny that IGN will only give Dune a 7 out of 10, but at the same time will then proceed to give this a 9. This ain't a 9. It's not a 9. It's not bad, it's just not a 9. Like, that's like near perfection. Dune is near perfection, in my opinion, and the fact that you're like, no, this was really great. Like, Scream, this new Scream is actually, I liked it. Overall I liked it. There's definitely a lot of pros and cons to it both. It's a movie that is like, as a horror slasher by itself, I would think it's like not great, but as a meta commentary, self-aware horror slasher, I think it works well. Again, it's that Scream formula. What's unfortunate is with earlier Scream movies, especially, you know, I'll always go back to the first one, it works on just about all levels for me in terms of like the drama, the emotion, the serious acting, and the slashing and the horror and the meta. Like, it all works. With this, it's like it tries to have these like serious, heartfelt, dramatic moments throughout, and then just misses the mark. But whenever it does get to the meta commentary, I thought it was pretty funny and surprisingly accurate. It's self-aware, but not like painfully self-aware. Like, as any tropes come out, it points out the tropes. Whenever people make stupid mistakes or decisions, they're like, oh, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Sometimes it gets a little bit on the nose, I'll admit, but overall it was kind of funny to like, it's weird to watch a movie and then hear them talking about other horror movies being like, oh, well, I personally prefer the Babadook, and I'm like, yeah, same here, fam, same. Wait, what are we talking about right now? It's like, but I liked it. It was funny because it's literally conversations that I've had with both fellow film purveyors as well as just like, you know, casual moviegoers. Decent effects. They definitely lean into the R rating for sure. I wish the kills were more creative, but I suppose if it's a slasher, you can't get too crazy, right? The kills, for the most part, for me, were mostly kind of boring. The violence was good, like people being stabbed, like in limbs, in the body, the violence going on, like even like when like knives are penetrating parts, like the violence is good. They don't shy away from showing you that stuff, which I like in an R-rated film like this. Like, I don't want you to suggest that this happened. Like, I'm here to see a slasher film. I want to see this person like take that damage and then, you know, go from there. So they do that well. But at the same time, that being said, Ghostface in terms of a killer is kind of one of the more boring ones, because all you have is a guy or girl running around with a knife and just slashing, stabbing, and slitting throats, and that's it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of variety. Sometimes they'll use stuff in the environment, maybe, or like a gun in the third act, but like, there's not a whole lot of creativity or room for creative like Ready or Not had some pretty like creative and gory kills and like situations where different violence was inflicted in different ways, and this kind of happens, but not until the third act, and like the rest of it's just kind of like stab, poke you in the neck, you know, stuff like that. And again, they even address it because Halloween did it, Star Wars, Ghostbusters, but like, you're bringing back legacy characters, and so it's like partially for plot, but also partially for fan service, and it feels very fan service-y what they do, but they're also self-aware, and they're even talking about it, because again, it's like they're here because of what happened in the previous film, so they're like, yeah, we're here, and it's like, oh, whoever the killer is, they want us to be here because they want to get the legacy characters involved, and like, they have the whole argument about like, you know, is it a sequel, is it a requel, and all this stuff, which again are arguments and conversations that I've had with other people before, which makes it funny. I think it works. I think the fact that they're bringing back these characters for legitimate plot reasons, but also acknowledging the fact that it's like, yeah, we're doing this because this is what people want to see, and this is also what horror films always do, is they nowadays they want to be able to, you want to make it new but not too new, you want to make it the same but different. Like, it's a good commentary a little bit on like Hollywood and the fans, and like what fans want in terms of, oh, we want, you know, you can never fully reboot something, you can only like, you can reboot it, but you got to keep it to the original, and like all these guidelines you got to follow to make people happy. And it does point out kind of like a weird back and forth, like a give and take that you have to have these days with your like audiences and like the movie industry. It points out some interesting things. As I already said, where it kind of falls off for me is the acting throughout, through some of the kids, and even one of our leads kind of falls flat for me here and there. Not to mention like some of the younger people, like the dialogue, like it's always kind of weird to write dialogue for the younger generation, because I mean, what do you even define as the younger generation? It's always constantly changing. Unless you're hanging out around them, you're never going to truly know how they interact and talk. And there were even some like younger people sitting behind me and the friend that I went to go see this with, and like they were like kind of low-key mocking the film whenever these scenes came up. And it's like, funny enough, the film was making fun of them in certain spots, and then they were making fun of the film, and it was this kind of just funny cycle of like, oh well, yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy right there. But it's always hard to nail down like teenage and kid dialogue, because then it sounds like you got a 45-year-old guy being like, oh, I know what's hip with the kids. They say this and they do this because that's what kids do these days. It's like, yes, but actually no. It's a hard nuance to nail down. Like I said, it lacked a true sense of heart for me. I didn't like, I mean, I felt a little bit for some of the characters, but I felt more strongly for these characters in previous films. I never really was like, oh my god, survive, get through this. I mean, maybe a little bit with the core cast, sure, because they've got some like, you know, bonus karma stacked up from previous films, but like, I never really, you know, there were stakes, sure, like, I felt stakes throughout the film. I don't know, I never really, like, really cared about somebody, their survival. I was never rooting for someone. I was more curious just to see, like, who was gonna die and how it was gonna pan out. I will say, the opening is good. No, I wouldn't say on par with the original, but close to it. Strong opening, and it's just unfortunate because after that strong opening, it kind of just like, until the third act. Not in a malignant sense of like it wasn't that bad, but it lacked the true essence of Scream for me. Sometimes it went back and forth again. You really are watching this for the meta commentary, in my opinion. That's what I enjoy the most out of it. And I feel like the opening of the film and the third act in its entirety are what I don't want to say saved this film, but what kind of elevated its status of like, okay, this is actually pretty good. But I don't want to get too far into it. I went with the franchise, and he put it pretty well. Like, this film is self-aware to the point where it's like, the people in the film even say, look, we know what good horror is out there, like in the modern sense of good horror. We know what we are, and we're in this lane and we're staying in it. And I agree completely. Scream is its own kind of lane, a subgenre and a subgenre, if you will. We're gonna get all hipstery now. I'm gonna coin shit or recoin shit, but Scream has always been kind of its own thing, and so it's why as a slasher by itself it doesn't quite work, but as a, like, again, horror slasher meta commentary series of films, I think that's where it definitely excels the most, and I think this one does that very well. Which I think it has done well for a while, in my opinion anyway. Of course, how can you beat the original Scream? But honestly, as a series, as far as series go, to watch Scream 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in a row, I mean, you're in for a good time overall. Like, you might call some, like, one or two of those bad, but I mean, I think I enjoyed all of them. As an average cumulative score, I think it's all, like, good. I think Scream was a lot better than Halloween Kills, I'll tell you what. Halloween Kills, very disappointing. Scream, not so much. All things considered, I would give Scream a very high 3 out of 5. Like, I'll probably watch it again. I'd recommend it. If you're a fan of the Scream series, I recommend it. If you're a fan of horror slashers or films that get a little bit meta, I recommend it. If you're not a fan of horror, you can avoid it. It's fine. Like, don't watch it. I mean, maybe see it in theaters? Sure. I'd say, I mean, again, if you're a fan of this kind of thing, sure, I'd say it's worth a shot in theaters. Otherwise, I mean, safe to stream, for sure. I wish it could have been better. I think if they had gotten some more, like, people just kind of make dumb, silly decisions throughout, like, illogical choices, and that kind of brings the film down. I think if they had characters that I cared about more, a little bit of better writing, and some, like, a little bit more logic behind characters' actions and all this could have been a really good Scream movie that had a bit more heart to it. It could have been great. It could have been a solid 4, but for what it is, again, you're watching it for the meta. So, high 3. Check it out if you want. I recommend it overall. And that's all I gotta say, I guess. I'm just going in circles now. But thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of whatever movie I review. Goodbye, travelers.